Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show. As I botched the opening of the show, I am, of course, your host, John Campea. Thank you so much for being here and joining me today on this glorious Thursday. We're getting closer to the end of the week. We got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about here today. And we're going to start, of course, with the topics that you guys wanted me to talk about. How do you send in a topic or question to be on the John Campea Show? It's real simple, guys. You just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you put that word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails as short as possible. Absolutely no longer than 90 words. So 90 words or less for those emails. And maybe you'll see the topic you bring up on the John Campea Show. And then after that, we're going to save a few minutes to take, of course, some of your live questions. I'm already seeing a bunch of you guys are sending in live questions. We'll get to those in just a little bit. So before I get into the regular questions, though, so Ann and I are at the gym this morning. And we're driving back, and my phone pings, and it's an email from Paramount, and they have dropped their first official poster for Mission Impossible 6 Fallout. So here's the first poster, just came out, so you don't see it in my show description at all. I like it. I like it. Nothing earth-shattering or anything like that. I think it's a really cool... I gotta admit, we've seen these types of posters with the silhouette of the character and then, you know, content inside the silhouette. It's nothing new. It's nothing original. I like it, though. I think it's a pretty good style, and it seems to be a style that fits well with the whole Mission Impossible thing. I like the idea. You see, we all know, of course, that Tom Cruise recently hurt himself again doing another stunt for the movie that involved the helicopter, and they put right in the poster there him hanging off a helicopter. So let's see which ways Tom Cruise threatens his own life in that movie. Word is we're going to get a first trailer for this movie at the Super Bowl. So that's just in a couple of days. Go Patriots, go. So we're going to see a new spot for that in the Super Bowl. By the way, this too. I've been hearing, and there was a report that came out, but I've also been hearing from people, and I know other people have been hearing from their people as well. It seems to be a pretty foregone conclusion now that Solo is going to have its trailer drop at Super Bowl. And you know, in the last couple of weeks, I've been saying, you know what, I'm starting to think maybe it will drop with it. I never thought they would drop a Solo trailer at the Super Bowl. But then as we got closer and closer, and some of you guys started sending me some valid points, you started to convince me. It's like, yeah, maybe we will. And now the Hollywood Reporter is actually saying that they expect it to drop there as well. They have sources telling them it's going to drop at Super Bowl. So it looks like we only got a couple of days left to wait for that spot. I'm pretty sure Disney won't confirm this. So probably just a few days away from getting that Solo spot. Okay, now with that out of the way, let's jump into it. The first official email today. And the first question today comes to us from Carlos Muñoz, who writes, "Hey John, greetings from the Philippines. Salamat and kumusta ka? Netflix just released the trailer for Duncan Jones' new movie, Mute. What are your thoughts / excitement level for this movie? And thoughts on Duncan Jones as a director? I thought Moon and Source Code were both fantastic and enjoyed Warcraft for what it was, and think he is one of the up-and-comers in Hollywood. Thanks." Well, I mean, first of all, as far as Duncan Jones go, I'm a big Duncan Jones fan. And I am one of those 7 people that actually liked Warcraft. Don't get me wrong. If you remember me talking about, I wasn't jumping up and down, this is the greatest movie ever. I wasn't like that with Warcraft, but I quite enjoyed Warcraft for what it was. It took me to Azeroth, you know what I mean? I remember the opening few minutes of the movie, it reminded me of the opening few minutes of me watching the first Lord of the Rings movie. Like, I'm sitting there in the theater going, I really feel like I'm in the Shire. Like, they captured the Shire. And to me, that's one of the things Warcraft did well, was capture Azeroth, right? And I felt I was there, because I have spent many hours of my life in Azeroth playing World of Warcraft, believe you me. Anyway, so I really felt I was teleported there, and I'm a big fan. And actually, I had the privilege of, I've corresponded with Duncan Jones before. I had the privilege of actually having him in my studio a couple times. Super guy. You know what's funny? I never even knew the dude's dad was David Bowie. I didn't know that until after David Bowie died, and somebody mentioned it. I'm like, what? Wait, what? I didn't know. I'm one of the guys who didn't know. So anyway, there you go. Now, as far as Mute goes, it's an interesting looking project, man. Okay, so for those of you who don't know anything about it, it's set a little bit futuristic, I believe. And you got Alexander Skarsgård, who plays a mute bartender, hence the title of the movie, Mute. and he takes on the city's gangsters in an attempt to find out what happened to his girlfriend / partner. Somehow Paul Rudd is involved. Not really sure what that whole angle is. I'll say this. I'm very excited for this movie. Just because it's Duncan Jones, just because it's Paul Rudd, just because it's Alexander Skarsgård. Alexander Skarsgård, I think, is a great actor. He truly is his father's son. But anyway, so I've been excited for the movie. I'm still excited for the movie. Going to admit, the trailer didn't thrill me. I didn't think it was a very well put together trailer. Now, a lot of people are saying they love the trailer, so clearly they did something right? So, but the aesthetic of it was very cool. It has a little bit of a Blade Runner 2049 feel to it, but I just felt it made the movie feel confusing. I watched that trailer and I feel like this kind of, the way it's presented, it feels like this is going to be a confusing movie, and it's probably not, because Duncan Jones is really good at really laying out the narrative path for his audience to follow along. But I didn't think they did a great job with the trailer, to be honest with you. I still think the movie's going to be great, and I can't wait to watch it. But me personally, I wasn't really thrilled with the trailer myself. But anyway, what did you guys think about the trailer? Jump into the comments section, let me know what you think. All right, let's move on now to the next topic. And the next topic comes to us from Amin, who writes, I had a question regarding scripts, and specifically the screenplay category at the Oscars. Are scripts of all films which are part of a franchise considered adapted screenplay? For example, would Rian Johnson's original Star Wars trilogy be considered an adapted or original screenplay? Or would the rumored Quentin Tarantino Star Trek film be considered adapted? All right, that is a great question, Amin, because that actually comes up a lot. Now, I get a lot of questions regarding what constitutes, because remember, at the Oscars, there are 2 screenplay awards. There's Best Adapted Screenplay. There's Best Original Screenplay. Adapted is generally defined as something that's a derivative of a previously existing source. So, Hunger Games. The screenplay for Hunger Games would be considered an adapted screenplay because it's adapted from existing material. The X-Men movies. Even though they're not literal translations, they are adapted from a previous pre-existing source material. So they are considered adapted. Now, what if, for example, you say take Star Wars, which was an original IP by George Lucas, okay? Star Wars is original. That's not adapted. But what about Empire Strikes Back? What about Revenge of the Sith? What about The Force Awakens? What about The Last Jedi? What about the Solo movie? What about the upcoming Rian Johnson Star Wars trilogy, which is going to be an original and stuff like that? Where's that? Here's how the rules dictated it, and whether it's fair or not, whatever. Anything that is a sequel of any kind, or anything that is part of a franchise, is considered adapted. Even Empire Strikes Back. Star Wars was an original IP, so it's an original screenplay. Empire Strikes Back would be considered, today at least anyway, Empire Strikes Back would be considered an adapted screenplay, because the screenplay of that is based on its own previous movie. Now, whether that's the right or wrong, whether that's the way they should do it or shouldn't do it, that's up for debate, but that is the way they look at it. That any kind of sequel, any movie that's in a franchise is automatically considered adapted. So maybe they'll change that sometime in the future. I kind of feel like if the franchise itself is an original franchise, let's say, go back to say the Nice Guys, right? Let's say they do a Nice Guys 2. Well, Nice Guys was a really original film. If they did a Nice Guys 2, I kind of feel like it should still be considered an original screenplay because the whole franchise is an original incarnation. But the way they look at it right now, and I can see the argument, I see where they're coming from. The argument right now, though, is that if it's still a part, it's being derived from the previous movie, so it's a derivative, therefore it is adapted. So that's the way they look at it. I hope that clears that up. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Nasir Navabi, who writes, Hey, John, watch your programs every day. Well, thank you so much. Did you see the group on Facebook created to organize people to go and downvote Black Panther on Rotten Tomatoes? The group already has over 2,000 members sign up. Does this settle it that the Rotten Tomatoes audience score system should be ignored? All right, for those of you who are not really clear on what Nasir is talking about, This has made its way around the news, actually. So there's this Facebook group, and this was even on Variety. There's this Facebook group that has, and you can see the header of it here, that has organized to organize people to, hey, as soon as voting opens, like viewer voting opens on Black Panther, let's all go and downvote it. Let's all go and downvote it. So, and what's the rationale? Well, let's read their doctrine, shall we? This is what's on their page. The doctrine reads, given the massive success of the audience review rigging on Rotten Tomatoes site for Star Wars The Last Jedi, and due to the sudden rise in those disgruntled with Disney business practices, among other factors, especially due to the corporate manipulations which created falsified bad press for the DCEU, I feel it's time to strike back at those under Disney and bring down the House of Mouse's actions for paying off the critics that hurt DC Comics on film and for their parties affected by them. I'll be making events like this for Infinity War and the Netflix shows, etc., so we can rally together to truly make a difference. Share this with your friends and all potential sympathizers. P.S. If you want to spread spoilers to Marvel fanboys, use this event as a platform to inform us of targets. All right. There is so much wrong with this that it's hard to put into words. First of all, you have a whiny baby that's putting this together. One of those guys that one of the things I'm always talking about is we as film fans need to get out of the habit of making excuses for why other people don't like the movies we like. We need to get out of the habit of making excuses for a critic not liking a movie that we like. We have to get out of the habit of making excuses. We have to just get to the point where we as fans go, oh, you hated that movie. Oh, okay, that sucks. I loved it. I wish you loved it too, but you didn't? Okay, no problem. That's the healthy attitude of a film fan. We have to get out of this attitude of making excuses. And as I look through this, all I see is some pathetic little mama's basement dwelling dumblefuck who, I mean, look at all the excuses he's put in there. Corporate manipulations which led to falsified bad press for the DCEU, paying off critics that hurt. First of all this is bullshit. This is all bullshit. But anyway. But it comes down again to that core thing of toxic fandom. This is a great example of toxic fandom. And I'm not saying, definitely do not make the mistake of jumping up and down saying it's all DC fans doing it. Do not make that mistake. No, it is not. Toxic fandom doesn't know a corporate label. Toxic fandom is everywhere, over everything. Believe you me, it is. So, but in this case, it happens to be a bunch of butthurt DC fans. In other cases, it would be the other way around. So let's make no mistake about that. But in this case, what we're seeing now is a true expression of toxic fandom. Toxic fandom it kind of really starts to fester and manifest itself when you, as a fan of one thing, decide your whole purpose is trying to ruin the experience for somebody else. You are so weak and so fragile and so pathetic that, you just can't handle, people don't like what I like, therefore I want to ruin things for everybody else. First of all, other people not liking what you like shouldn't ruin your experience in the first place. Secondly, the whole idea of you needing to express your prepubescent anger about going after and try to ruin things for other people who like things I don't like. I'm going to ruin fandom for them. That is the heartbeat of toxic fandom. And yeah, I've got no mistakes. These are pathetic little, mama's basement dwelling dumblefucks who are pathetic and are losers. And if they're straight guys, have never touched a girl's hand, if they're gay guys, never touched a dude's shoulder, just pathetic, sexually repressed losers. That's what they are. And they need to be called out as such. But the real concerning thing about this to me is the fact that it got like 2,000 people signed up for it just like that. Like so fast. Thousands of people signed up for it. Kind of revealing that this dumblefuck army is bigger than you think. There are more pathetic people out there than we think. And again, don't make the mistake of thinking it's only confined to one fan group. Don't make that mistake, because it's not. But in this case, we're talking about this pathetic group of losers. Anyway, so, and again, it does bring up the thing. Remember, I've told people all the time, I keep telling people all the time, it is stuff like this that is only now getting headlines. But believe you me, stuff like this has existed for a while. This is why fan-voted rating systems are useless. Because they can be so easily manipulated, so easily corrupted. And what we're seeing here is, okay, we're going to get the Black Panther thing corrupted. Okay, there we go. It's going to get corrupted. Whatever the number is now, it's not going to be the real number. And therefore, it's irrelevant. That's why I always say the only true audience rating system is CinemaScore. Because only CinemaScore is actually physically there at the theaters, verifying that the people coming out have actually seen the film and then get their impressions and reaction. That's the only one. And that's not a great system, but it's the only one that you can even remotely try to trust. The Rotten Tomatoes critic scores, fine. CinemaScore critic scores, fine. All that kind of stuff. But as far as audience rating stuff, it's just, this is not new, guys. This isn't new. This has been going on for a while. I remember it all kind of started when there was this big fan-organized thing to go onto IMDb, because there was a bunch of fans of The Dark Knight. And we all love The Dark Knight, right? But they wanted The Dark Knight to be the #1 fan-rated film on IMDb, but it was The Godfather. So what they did, I don't know if you guys remember this, they organized this big thing to try to get thousands of people to go to IMDb just to downvote Godfather, so Dark Knight could be the #1 thing. And first of all, you should have fingers cut off your hand if you ever downvote The Godfather. Okay? So there's just that. I'm speaking, metaphorically, of course. So anyway, there's that. But guys, stuff like this, this is why all of us need to take a stand against toxic fandom, starting with ourselves. Because me included, guys, me included, we all have elements of toxic fandom on ourselves, and we've got to check ourselves. Because if we want the movie fandom community to be as great as it can be, then we've got to start with ourselves, try to purge out any toxic fandom stuff we have, and then, call out our friends around us, first of all, who exhibit those behaviors, and try to make it a healthier place. Look, I don't care if you love or hate Marvel. I don't care if you love or hate DC. But you're a pathetic loser if you try to ruin a DC fan's love of what they love. And you're a pathetic loser if you try to ruin a Marvel's fan's love of what they love. That's not healthy fandom. So anyway, that's just my thought on that. Jump into the comments section. Leave your thoughts below. Let me know what you guys think. All right, let's move on now to the final emailed in topic today. And this one comes to us from Alfonso Bruticelli, who writes, I've heard you say in the last few weeks that seeing the X-Men and Fantastic Four in the MCU could be years away. Yeah, I have been saying that. But I've been reading reports that Wolverine could be appearing in Avengers 4, and that Marvel plans to say that Stark sold the Avengers Tower to Reed Richards. Couldn't we see the X characters in the MCU much sooner rather than later? All right. Thanks a lot to the question, man. And of course, with the big acquisition of Marvel buying so many of Fox's properties, which of course includes them reacquiring X-Men, Deadpool, Fantastic Four, and everything associated with them, it's completely understandable that a lot of fans have been very excited about wanting to see, a Wolverine pop in Avengers. Can we now finally see T'Chaka marry Storm the way he was destined to? Can we finally see this, that, and the other? I want to see Deadpool and Spider-Man on screen. We could now just be months away from that happening. And I remember I got into a debate in our own chat room here with some people who were trying to convince me, John, I saw a screenshot and there were Wolverine claw marks on the wall in this one Avengers screenshot. Wolverine is going to be in the new movie. And the thing I've been trying to, and I understand the enthusiasm, really excited about this, all the possibilities that open up with the X-Men and Fantastic Four being in the MCU. I never wanted them in the MCU. I like them being on their own, but whatever. But all the excitement, I get it. But the reality is, just because Fox and Marvel, and we've been talking about this, have reached an agreement doesn't mean it's executed. It's a long ways away. It's at least a year to 18 months away before the government even approves it. And once that happens, that's only the start of the work. Now, anyway, Kevin Feige, who is, of course, the president of Marvel, he is the big executive producer of all the Marvel films. He is the man responsible for everything. He was asked about this, and he actually said some very interesting things. Starting with this, he didn't even know the deal was happening. He was asked about it, and he said, to be completely honest with you, the way I found out about Marvel acquiring Fox was from the news. He said that was a decision that was way above my pay grade. I was not involved in that. That had nothing to do with me. I didn't even know about it till I read it in the news. And you know what? I completely believe him. But then he was specifically asked about how quick, how fast are we going to see some X-Men, Deadpool, Fantastic Four in the MCU? And this is what Kevin Feige said. He said this. The truth of the matter, as I understand it, is the deal has to be figured out still, said Feige. There's no communication. We're not thinking about it. We're focusing on everything we've already announced. And if and when the deal actually happens, we'll start to think more about it. Until then, we have a lot to do. It would be years away. We've announced everything through 2019, so none of those things would be adjusted. It's just so important what he's saying here. Let me read it again. The truth of the matter, as I understand it, is the deal has to be figured out, said Feige. There's been no communication. We're not thinking about it. We're focusing on everything we've already announced. And if and when the deal actually happens, we'll start to think more about it. Until then, we have a lot to do. It would be years away. We've announced everything through 2019, so none of that would be adjusted. So, according to Feige, they're not even thinking about X-Men at this point. They're not even thinking about Deadpool at this point. They're not even thinking about Fantastic Four at this point. And he was not privy to the deal even being made in the first place. So, if we understand that Feige's saying, look, until this deal's even gone through, I'm not even thinking about it. And once the deal does go through, then he'll start thinking about it. Then you got to get scripts written. Then you got to make, it's conceivable here. It could be a little bit earlier, but it's conceivable here at this point that we may not see an X-Men or Deadpool in the MCU kind of move or movie until well into 2021, 2022. It's completely possible. So I think what Kevin Feige has kind of put to rest here is any kind of a notion that just prepare. No, we're not going to see Wolverine in Avengers Infinity War. No, we're not going to see Wolverine in Avengers 4 coming out next year. He's not even thinking about those things right now. Now, of course, you could make the argument, well, what if he's lying? Well, you could always say, what if he's lying? But on this type of a level, that type of a bold-faced lie is not something Kevin Feige has ever done. They were a little bit coy about the Spider-Man deal, but he never flat out lied about it. So, considering the fact that we know the Justice Department isn't even going to be able to approve this thing for at least another year, maybe another year and a half, I tend to believe exactly what Feige's saying. Because what he's saying lines up with everything we already know. So let me know what you guys think. Does that put a bummer in it for you? Or do you feel a little bit like, actually, that's a relief? Because now we know they're not going to rush. Go, oh, we got Wolverine now? Just shoehorn him in. Oh, we got Deadpool now? Just force him into things we weren't planning on using him in. Maybe you're feeling like me a little bit. It's like, no, actually, this is kind of reassuring. They're not going to rush these things. They're going to take their time. They're going to figure out how do mutants now fit into this MCU as a whole. And then they'll pull the trigger. And then they'll move forward. And maybe that's a better thing. Or maybe you were really hoping to see some Deadpool, Wolverine, Storm, whatever pop up in one of the Avengers films or something like that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. All right, guys. With that out of the way, time for us to go to the live questions. A bunch of you guys have sent some in already. By the way, if you have not yet sent in a live question on the Super Chat, you got 30 more seconds. 30 more seconds to send in a live question and then cut it off. Don't send in any more questions after 30 seconds from now, okay? All right, with that out of the way, let's dive in to the first live question. The first live question, of course, comes to us from Ben Rayner, who writes, did you like Sam Witwer as Davis/Doomsday on Smallville? I like what they were going for. I thought the execution of Doomsday was meh. Yeah, absolutely, it was a little bit meh. But I thought Sam did a good job. Your thoughts? Well, yeah, I thought Sam was great on the show when he was Sam. Like when Sam was playing Davis, I liked the character very much. And I appreciated that they decided to roll the dice and try Doomsday on the show. I appreciated that. I did. But the Doomsday aspect of it, I think most fans agree, didn't quite work. But I thought Sam, being Sam, playing the character he was playing, I thought he was great on it. Sam needs to be more things, man. I don't know if he just doesn't want to work as much or he's not getting the opportunities. The dude is just too freaking talented. Anyway, and I'm a little biased because I know him. But anyway, Sam Fisher writes, have you ever seen The Magicians? I love it. It's basically the love child of Harry Potter and Narnia if they had fucked while on acid. I have never seen it. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I've even ever heard of it. Just being honest with you, I don't know that I've ever heard of it. But one of the great things about sending in live questions on the show is that you can make people aware of IPs and shows and movies that maybe other people never heard of. Now people have heard The Magicians, and maybe other people will check it out. Thanks for sending that in, Sam. Alex Brown writes, after the Russos are done with the Avengers, I think they should direct a James Bond movie. What do you think? P.S. You're all right for a Pats fan. You guys know what I'm going to say. Look, what do you think about X actor in X movie? What do you think about X director, directing X movie? Sure, why not? That's my answer all the time. As long as it's a good actor, as long as it's a good actress, as long as it's a good director, then fine, I'm fine with it. The Russo brothers are good directors. If they want to do a James Bond film, sure, why not? No problem. But that's kind of my attitude on all these questions about should X actor be in X movie? Sure, as long as it's a good director, and the Russo brothers do qualify, so that would be fine. Ben Rayner writes, thoughts on the show Scrubs? Oh man, I love Scrubs. I loved Scrubs. And it's kind of funny because I run into this one time. I might have told this story before. Forgive me if I have. I thought Scrubs was great until it got to its last season on the new network when it wasn't even the main cast anymore. Anyway, I thought the dialogue was sharp and witty. All the characters, especially even all the auxiliary characters, I thought were just hilarious. The main doctor that was our main character's boss, he was like the guy from Office Space who says, "What would you say you do here?" Like that guy who was in Scrubs. He was like my favorite character on television for a while. But anyway, Donald Faison, who's like the second lead in Scrubs. I don't know if I've told the story before, but I was at Star Wars The Force Awakens premiere. And I go into the bathroom, and I'm standing at a urinal. And whenever I go to Star Wars events, more people than normal recognize me because I'm a Star Wars nerd, right? So I had a bunch of people that night coming up and talking to me and saying, "Hey, man, love watching you on YouTube, blah, blah, blah." So I'm standing there at the urinal, and this guy beside me, it's always awkward standing at urinals. This guy beside me goes, "Hey, man, John, man, I love watching your Star Wars stuff on YouTube, man." I'm like, "Hey, great, thanks, dude. I really appreciate it." Because it's always nice hearing that. But, I'm standing in a urinal. And then he goes to wash his hands. Then I go to wash my hands, and I catch a glimpse of him as he's going out the door. And I'm like, holy shit, that was Donald Faison from Scrubs. And luckily, and then I felt really stupid. Luckily enough, I was able to catch up to him later in the evening and have a chat. But I loved Scrubs. It just fell apart at the very end, but I loved that show. Craig Hutchings writes, "Hey, John, big fan from Liverpool in the UK. Watched 3 Billboards yesterday. So good. Rockwell and McDermott will get Oscars for sure. Keep up the great work." Hey, man, listen, you know who one of Rockwell's biggest opponents is going to be? It's going to be Woody Harrelson from the same movie. I love Sam Rockwell in this movie. I will have no objections if he wins Best Supporting Actor. But honestly, if it was, I might even vote Woody Harrelson over him in this one. But anyway, they were both so good. And Frances McDormand, she was so great in this movie. It would be considered an upset if she doesn't win Best Lead Actress. I think she will. She's just building up a collection now of Oscars. Alton J writes, "When you were younger, did you ever watch You Can't Do That on Television?" Yep, I did. And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Alanis Morissette on that show? I think Alanis Morissette was on that show. Before she was, before she just became Alanis, a pop star, and then she went through a total reimagining and became Alanis Morissette, the gritty, disgruntled singer. But I think she was on it. Yes, I did. When I was a kid, I used to watch You Can't Do That on Television. It was a lot of fun. Rodrigo Ramirez writes, "Bleacher Report reports that LeBron James will listen to the Warriors this offseason if they could create a max salary slot." Oh, gosh. I mean, look, wherever LeBron wants to go, he's just constantly on teams that are beneath him. He really is. I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. It's just, first of all, you can't. I don't know how you can create a max deal when you're going to have max deals for Curry, for Durant. And look, you got to pay. They've got 2 other All-Stars on the team besides that. I mean, I just don't know how they could actually make it happen without losing key chemistry pieces to their lineup. I mean, Klay Thompson, I'm telling you, Klay Thompson is a superstar. If he was on almost any other team, he would be considered top 6, top 7 players in the league. I guarantee you that. But he plays in the shadow of some other giants. And that team is just so good. It's crazy. Charlie Gray writes, what terrible movie you just love watching? Mine is Blues Brothers 2000. Oh my gosh, that is a terrible movie. I'm going to go back to Mortal Kombat. It's a terrible movie. Terrible movie, and I love it. I love watching every second of that movie, but like, make no mistake, it's a terrible movie. Mortal Kombat, although killer soundtrack. Look up the soundtrack to the original Mortal Kombat movie. Du hast. Anyway, it's a really great soundtrack. Check it out if you get a chance. Anthony C. writes, favorite 80s action star, Arnold Sly or Jean-Claude Van Damme? Man, that's hard. They all brought something so very different to the screen. Like Jean-Claude Van Damme was a martial arts superstar. That's not what Sly or Arnie were. Sly and Arnie were the big tough guy superstars. That's not what Jean-Claude was. I'm gonna have to take a push. I'm not sure. Like here's my thing. My all-time favorite action film is actually True Lies. I love that film. And so that's an Arnold film. But Sly, I take a pass on the question. It's a great question, but I take a pass on for now. John Yatsko writes, what happened to the Acme movie with Steve Carell? I'm not sure. I remember talking about that a long time ago. Acme. And nothing ever actually kind of came of it. I'm just on IMDb right now. There's nothing about any cast attached or anything like that. So I guess it's just one of those things that they thought about doing. They thought they were going to do it. But look, that's how many projects are. Projects get talked about, a script gets developed, maybe they attach a star to it, but then it falls apart. And that happens to an awful lot of movies. More movies than actually get made that happens to. So maybe Acme was one of those things. If I hear anything more about it, I'll let you guys know for sure. Good question. I'm glad somebody remembered that movie. Anju writes, hey John, big fan from India. Thank you so much, Anju. Thoughts on Linklater's Before trilogy? 3 near-perfect films in my opinion, with Before Midnight being the best. It is the best trilogy hardly anybody's ever watched. Let's put it that way. To me, it is probably the best trilogy that nobody's ever watched. And of course, many people have seen the Before films. Yes, Handsome Hawk being in there and everything. But, I mean, really, when you talk about some of the best trilogies of all time, and you want to put together a list of, say, the top, like, 7, 8, 9, 10 trilogies of all time, you'd put the Before films on that, and I guarantee you it's the least viewed. I guarantee it's the least viewed of all of them. I think they're great. They're not wide market appeal films for sure, which is one of the reasons why, I think it would be the least viewed of all of them. But they're all solid films, and Linklater's a great director. I know I always talk about this one film he did, but he did this one little film, and it's the reason I am a big fan of Zac Efron. He did this little film called Me and Orson Welles. And nobody saw it. Nobody saw it. It completely flew under the radar. I thought it was a really nice film, and it's the film that made me convinced, like, holy crap, this Zac Efron kid can actually really act, like, real good. And it's the movie that convinced me about that, and it's a Linklater film. So if you guys get a chance, check that one out. Adam K. writes, is Split considered adapted because of the ending? Yep. Yeah, I mean, technically speaking, it is, by all technical requirements, it is an adapted screenplay. So yes, Split would be considered adapted. Yes, absolutely. Murray for Us writes, it's funny how some fans want mature Star Wars content, then The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, Rogue One, and of course, Revenge of the Sith were rated PG-13. Burnt Anakin was brutal enough. Thoughts? Oh, I mean, well, I talked about that the other day. It's like, look, when people, because somebody the other day asked me on the show about, do you think we can get some mature Star Wars stuff? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you think Empire wasn't mature? But again, what I said on the show the other day was basically this. What I find is about 80% of the time, not 100% of the time, but about 80% of the time when somebody talks to me about wanting a more mature Star Wars, when you really boil it down and I talk to them more, I realize, oh, you just want to hear them say fuck and see some titties. Like, that's what it comes down to, right? To you, that's what mature means. Because there's some very mature stuff, mature themes, thematics, ideas, concepts that run throughout a lot of these Star Wars films. So I often, whenever somebody says to me, do you think we can get a mature Star Wars film? I really want to press them when I'm with them in person. Okay, what do you mean by mature? What would make it more mature than, say, a lot of the events of Empire Strikes Back? What would make it more mature than some of the events in Return of or The Last Jedi even? What would make it more mature? Go. And what it comes down to is they want R-rated stuff. They want to hear the F-bomb drop. They want to see some titties. And it's like, oh, well, okay, if that's what you think mature is. But yeah, I agree with you, Murray Frost. I do. I really do. Devontae Brown writes, Kingsman 2 jumped to $409 million and Kingsman 1 $414. Different budgets, but can you finally say that Part 3... Part 3, super chatted yesterday, but you passed. Oh, I didn't see it yesterday. Let me bring up the thing on that. Kingsman 2 box office. Let me bring it up here. Yeah, it made $407 million. I don't think at $100 million... I don't know. Here's one of the big things. It only made $100 million domestic. It made the rest of its money foreign. What you often see, not all the time, what you often see is there's a tail effect with something that's popular in North America, and then it will become popular in other markets. And then as it becomes less popular in North America, eventually the tail starts to fall with it. So them seeing a domestic total of $100 million would probably be... Look, I'll be honest with you. I don't want a Kingsman 3. I was really disappointed in Kingsman 2. When I first came out of it, I thought, oh, that just wasn't as good as the first one, but I think I still like it. And then I watched it again. I'm like, no, I just don't like this film. This is not a good movie. I really came off the rails, and not in a good way. It's just a poor movie. It's a bad movie. And I'll be honest with you, where I am right now, financially speaking, is it in a financial zone? I mean, again, you want to see the sequel make more money than the original. That didn't happen. But I guess you could make an argument that from a financial point of view, it's in a position that you could greenlight it and it would be sound business-wise. I'll just be honest, at this point, I just don't have any interest in it. I love the first Kingsman. Love it. But now I really wish they didn't make the second one. So that's just kind of where I am right now. Benjamin, where did Benjamin go? Benjamin writes, hey, John, Paddington 2 is such a wonderful movie. You're damn right it is. It's incredible. And you know what? You laugh at me all you want. If they make a Paddington 3... and it's even 90% as good as the first two, Paddington gets in the conversation for some of the best trilogies ever made. These films are amazing. And a lot of people, it's just a movie about a teddy bear. I don't care, man. It's beautiful filmmaking. Beautiful filmmaking. You make your heart happy. Watch Paddington 2, folks. Abik Khan just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Abik. Christian Ailman writes, shout out to your girlfriend, Nan Ampia. Okay, for those of you who don't know what that was, I live streamed when Ann and I were in the car driving to see the Black Panther premiere. I was live streaming, saying, hey, we're on our way to the Black Panther premiere. And somebody said in the chat, is that your wife beside you? And I said, no, that's not my wife. It's my girlfriend. And Ann goes, yes, my name is Nan Ampia. So shout out to Nan Ampia. Thanks for bringing that up, Christian. Jeremiah J. writes, when are you new co-hosts going to start? I was looking at this week. However, something came up and one of them lost their voice. So now it'll be next week sometime. So it unfortunately had to get pushed off. So probably next week sometime. Thanks for thinking of them though, Jeremiah. Shreyas writes, toxic fandoms everywhere, be it DC, Marvel, even Star Wars. And I should know I enjoy the prequels. But has any other fandom besides DC come up with such ridiculous theories? Well, here's the thing. It on the surface, it looks like the DC fandom does it worse, but that's only because the Marvel films are more accepted. Like, people just generally like the Marvel films more. Believe you me, if the tables were turned and the critics didn't like the Marvel films, and if a lot of the audience didn't like the Marvel films, you would see a lot more of it coming from the MCU fans as well. So yes, the DC stuff is more seeable, it's more obvious, there is probably a little bit more of it, but that's only because of the way the circumstances are. If the circumstances were swapped, I have very little doubt that the Marvel fandom would have its segment of toxic fandom as well, and it would probably be just as bad as some of the stuff coming in the DC stuff. So it's only a matter of perspective and context, really. So that's just my thought. Good observation, though. Let's see. Gojira King 1 writes, does the X-Men / Marvel buy sadden you because it means that with the reboot, it's possible we may lose Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool? No, I'm not worried about that at all. Like, Deadpool is so meta. Even the way the movie was done, it's so meta. You don't really even need to worry about rebooting the character per se. I don't think... Right now, Ryan Reynolds is the producer of Deadpool. He is like the chief creative director of Deadpool. He's the star of Deadpool. He's even the one who hired the writers. I mean, he is so attached to it right now. I have no doubt that when this all goes through and everything, unless Ryan Reynolds walks, I have no doubt Disney will bring him over. And again, because the nature of Deadpool is so meta in the first place, I don't really think it's going to affect things too much. Okay, last couple of questions here. Devontae Brown writes, you hate the franchise, but do you like the Saw theme music that plays at the end of every movie? I think it's iconic for horror. I'll be honest with you, I can't even remember what the music at the end of the films off the top of my head sounds like. I don't hate the franchise. Like, I enjoy the first one. I think I even, it's been so many years, but I even think I like the second one. So I don't hate the franchise. I mean, I dislike a lot of the installments, as I think most people do. Dislike a lot of the installments in it, but there were some definitely shining moments in the franchise for sure. As far as your specific question about the music that plays at the end, I'll be honest with you, I can't think of it off the top of my head. I don't recall what that is, and I don't recall going, oh, hey, this is the same music they played at the end of the last one. I don't remember that. But that's a really cool thing you're catching there, Devontae. If that's the case, and if that's true, that's a great little trivia question, actually. That's a great little trivia question. Devontae Swing writes, what movie is worse, Mortal Kombat or Van Damme Street Fighter? Oh, Van Damme Street Fighter, because it's not, Mortal Kombat is so bad, it's awesome to watch. Street Fighter is just so bad, it should never be spoken of again. Those are two very different types of categories, but that's where I would put that one. And the last question today, Steven Schuster writes, how are you liking the progression of Black Lightning? Very, very much. As a matter of fact, Ann and I were just talking about this. In this last episode, I think it's episode 3 of Black Lightning, there is one, if you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. There is one of the funniest moments that I had to pause the video because I was laughing so hard at it. It involves, if you guys seen the show, I'm not going to give away the spoiler, but I'm going to tell you which scene it was, okay? It involves the mom and dad and the youngest daughter sitting down at family dinner. Okay, if you watch the show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I thought I was going to spit up a lung that I was laughing so hard in that scene. But seriously, what they're doing with their villain Tobias, what they did with Lala, all that kind of stuff, it's some nice twists and turns in here. I love the lead character. I love that we have a superhero who's like, you know, a principal, an older man. He's got like grown daughters and all this. I mean, I really like the approach they're taking with it. And they throw in some neat little mysteries here and there, and they shock you at the same time. Like the one woman who got shot, and it's like, whoa, like they're shocking you along the way. I am really enjoying Black Lightning so far. I'm getting a big kick out of it. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today, for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for joining me and being a part of this. I love talking about movies with you guys, sharing our thoughts and opinions, and just celebrating being film fans. Listen, guys, don't forget, jump down to the comment section, leave your thoughts below. Make sure, guys, to remember, we're all on the same side. Even if we're on different sides of a debate, we're all movie fans together. We're on the same team. Let's get rid of toxic fandom. And so debate passionately, all that kind of stuff, because that's one of the most fun things about being a movie fan. Just remember, no toxic fandom, and be respectful to each other, because at the end of the day, we're all on the same team, and we want to encourage fellow film fans to be fellow film fans. Anyway, guys, if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, click the subscribe, click the subscribe button, become one of my subscribers. Make sure you click the thumbs up button on this video. Leave a thought or comment. Follow me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, simply at John Campea. That will do it for me for today, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.